Parenting's hard, you don't know what to do. You're blaming your kids, but it's probably you. You love your kids and that you can trust. Just remember your kids don't suck.
Welcome to Your Kids Don't Suck, cultivating closeness with your children through non-coercive conscious parenting. We're your hosts, Cara Tedstone and Rythea Lee. Let's dive in and grow together. So today, Rythea and I are together, and we're going to do a little impromptu process work with me as the star today. And I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to kind of collaboratively look at some things that are coming up for me as a parent. And we're going to see what comes out, what needs attention. Rythea works with inner bonding, and we've covered that in a previous episode, but it's similar to parts work. What we're going to be doing is checking in with me, how I'm feeling, to see what needs attention and explore my parts and see what they're asking of me, because I've been feeling good lately, I will say, like very good. We were talking a while ago about being in, for me, a stage of ease with parenting, but I feel worried sometimes, and of course overstimulated, and there's obviously triggers that come through day to day because of different things. And I've been struggling to think about, like, what do I want to unpack? So you guys, listeners, are going to see what comes up, because I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things to orient our listeners. Cara has a 2-year-old, right? She's a cis female. She's white, she's a therapist. She lives in Canada. You're married. Any other important identity things just to say, because it's important to put us on the map when we're sharing, because this is only our experience and not other people's experience. Would you say you're a middle class person?
Yeah. I mean, I have training. Obviously, my training is in psychotherapy, psychology and psychotherapy. So there's that. And I'm bereaved. So of course, my brother, my dead brother, may or may not come into play here. That's my trauma, one of my traumas.
Right. And we have been doing podcasts where we share our process, because we want to model for parents what it looks like, or what it could look like to have a process. So instead of being in constant projection with our kids and constantly playing out our own childhoods, we take the time to go inward and look at our triggers and track it to our histories. And that's why we're doing this. I probably have done 2 of those on our podcast. Yeah. So this is your turn.
Yay.
And I'm going to let Cara pretty much lead, because she knows the kind of process that she does. It's a little different than mine. I'm going to help. I'm going to support.
Well, I'm feeling, so in my body, I'm checking in with my body, and I'm feeling like fluttering behind my chest. Like it's a little bit like nervousness. And I always feel this way before I start recording, because, there's where we become aware that there's people listening. So that's partly that. But it's kind of been coming up for me when I think about the future with my daughter. A lot of worries about her being a raised female. And it's almost like there's this resting state of anxiety lately. And it feels like it's being triggered by her growing up. Like, she's not a baby anymore. It's so clear. And her language has exploded. So she's just such an independent being now, like a child, like a whole walking, talking person with the ability to go and make decisions for herself. So it's like becoming a little bit terrifying. So I've been like noticing this anxiousness, and I've been working with my parts, and I've been saying, like, what do you need? And can you take a step back so that I can, like, I've got this, like, it's going to be okay. 'Cause, we're going to figure it all out together. But I feel like there's a part that's like, no, I need to stay in charge here. I need to protect her. We're going to be really on edge. We're going to be really on high alert, and we're going to be really attuned to like potential threats. And this is giving me like physical feelings of anxiety. So it's just, yeah, really just palpable fast-paced breathing and feeling like I need to operate at like a higher speed.
Mm. Makes you speed up.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Makes me do more. In IFS, internal family systems, we refer to the parts that tend to take over and executively function as like managers. So this is a manager part that's kind of like cracking a whip in a way. And it's like, let's go. We've got stuff to do, protect, make sure, control.
Mm.
The part is also working really well with me when it comes to coercion. It really, I'm so grateful for the work that I feel like this part has done to like let me and the other parts help it not control Aaliyah. There are parts that would control Aaliyah, of course,
Mm.
to protect her.
Mhm.
And that part is like really willing to take a step back there. I feel like there's a lot of trust. Like I'm actually feeling a huge gratitude right now that I feel like I should tell the part, like, thank you for trusting us as we parent. So now I want this part to trust me, just be me.
Right. Do you want to let the part have a little more room to talk about what she's scared of will
Mhm.
happen, like why she feels she needs to protect so intensely?
She definitely is like remembering all of the shit that happened to me. Like just all of the like the scary moments of like being exposed like as a girl, like being catcalled when you're 11, like just watching my daughter, even people just touching her without her consent, like even if it's in a loving way. My daughter doesn't like that. Like if you don't if you're not close with her and you kind of pat her on the back or go like, "Oh, tickle tickle" or whatever, like she really hates that. She'll actually usually cry. Like she'll whimper and she finds that really jarring. I definitely watch that happen and feel like, "Oh God, it's starting." Like I get worried. I'm like, it's her autonomy is starting to get stripped away. And she's feeling it because when she was a baby, she didn't necessarily show that she noticed that so much. But now she shows me and she cries and she's like, "What? Like, why would they touch me?" She's not saying that, but she's showing me that.
Right.
Starting to be like, "Oh yeah, you really aren't going to be able to protect her or necessarily like you can help her process what's happened, but that's all you can do."
So obviously it would be most people's impulse to want to like fix this, like problem solve this, like, well, you can teach her boundaries and you can teach her to say no and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But for this purpose, we want to look at your kid part who had to live through that,
Mm-hmm.
what that was like for you.
Yeah. My kid part is like it's so confusing when you're like however old. I mean, I don't know if I can get an age because I'm remembering one time that I was on the street with my cousin and cars were honking at us and I didn't know what that meant because I was 11 or younger. I don't actually remember how old. So that part is like telling me it's so confusing. Like what does this mean? What does this mean? Like this feels so gross. And my cousin at the time was older, like 16, so she had to explain to me like, "Oh, those are like men. Like they like the way we look." Like having to tell me that because I was totally
Right.
unaware
Wow.
and like make sense of it on my own
Yeah.
was very confusing and just made it sort of normalized like, "Oh, this is what happens." And then so you just have to swallow it.
Yeah.
So of course I don't want my kid to feel that way and I guess I get triggered.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like it's your 11-year-old
Mhm.
around that age and feeling the confusion if you just allow that.
Mhm.
And if your adult self could be the parent that you didn't have at that time,
Mhm.
what does she need to hear right now about her, not about Aaliyah yet? We'll get to that.
Yeah, she's like she just really wants to be told how wrong that is.
Okay.
That like that's not okay. Like that's not okay and it's not right.
Mhm.
Like validated that it was so uncomfortable, that it is disgusting
Yeah.
and it is confusing and that's
Yes.
that's
And it's
because it's not
scary.
right.
It's
Yeah, and
actually
scary.
scary.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
scary. It's not okay.
And
It's
it's like
gross.
assaulting.
Yeah, it's violating.
Yeah.
It's invasive.
Yeah.
And I think she needs to know that she has you now,
Mhm.
like you would do if Aaliyah was 11. You'd be like, I'm here, and
Mhm.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you, and I'm gonna help keep you safe, and we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna figure out what you need, and You're not alone, and it's not your fault. I think that's the really big thing. It's not your fault that they do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes kids feel like they ask for it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the energy of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm getting like a little bit of like feeling seen. Like yeah. Thank you for like finally listening.
Mm,
Because I think I've been aware of this story, but I haven't actually taken the time to give that part attention.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I love to go back in time and imagine you're on the street and you're you now, and you could walk right into the scene and like put her, like hold her in your arms and be like, sweetheart, I got you.
Mm-hmm. I'm picturing me now like saying screaming like fuck you to the people. And the
Yeah,
11-year-old is like, nice, yeah. My 11-year-old self was not. There are 11-year-olds out there today that are aware of feminism. Like they have an understanding of autonomy, and I didn't have any understanding at all.
I'm so sorry. And you know, it's so intense about us doing these podcasts. It's like the fact that no one explained this to you and you didn't have any tools and you didn't have any language is
Mhm.
exactly what happens when you're not doing this kind of parenting.
Yes.
This is exactly what happens. It turns into neglect. It
Yeah.
turns into just having a separate life and children having to deal with everything themselves. That's what happens when there's no collaboration and equality.
Hmm.
So just throw that in there, like that you're showing the results of authoritarian parenting.
Yes, there's something very particularly helpful to this visualization of giving attention to your parts, because it helps you then see you reenacting it with your own child. Like just having done this for a couple seconds, it lets me feel, oh, of course that's what I would do. That's easy for me to do. I can definitely do that with my own kid. I know what to do. I have all the tools.
Yeah.
It's a shift that happens like pretty instantly. Before I was feeling worried. I was feeling anxious, like I can't protect her, even if I say all the right things. But the shift is more about like, but you are going to protect her with language, with awareness, with it's not your fault.
Oh, just the fact now that she cries when you
Yeah.
do it means that she's already having her natural response. She's already not stuffing it down and laughing and people pleasing. She's having a authentic response. By
Yeah,
the way,
that's so
I'm feeling
true.
quite weepy on this topic. It's so touching.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I feel guilty because, of course, there's the people pleaser in me who doesn't want her to cry, because I don't want people to feel like part of me is like, oh, well, first of all, they're going to judge her for being too sensitive. They're not going to like her. They're going to take that as insulting. And, wouldn't it be easier and better for everybody if she were just like, he, like, and didn't mind? But the
Yeah,
fact is,
it would
she
be.
does mind. And that's the reality. And I am not going to, yeah, like I guess I feel guilty too, because I think I didn't show up quite as strongly attuned to her like or I guess I don't know. I think that's another part that's where the worried part is, like, okay, but make sure that you don't let the people pleasing override your want to be there for her truly. I think
Right.
that's another worried. That's
Yeah,
definitely.
I just want to say that my kid was not a people pleaser,
Hmm.
and it was extremely hard on my ego.
Yeah.
And now it's paying off in every way. But when she was younger, it was very hard
Yeah.
in groups and stuff. But I knew like you're knowing right now that it was more important.
Mm,
It was more important for her to not be pleasing.
yeah.
It was more important for her to be herself. And now as she gets older, that's turned into boundaries and clarity in her perspective. And
Yeah. It's amazing.
it's very hard on people, like, especially, I mean, I don't know what it's like for cis men, but like for people raised female, it's so hard to not be approved of. It's like it's
Yeah.
terrifying and unbearable. So when we have a kid who's doing something that's not going to be approved of, they won't say they're sorry, whatever, they won't give the toy back, you know,
Hmm.
whatever the thing is. It's like we have to absolutely retrain ourselves that our child is actually more important than all those other people.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely that part that gets anxious and then wants to act like you're gonna piss these other people off, or like they're not gonna like her. Make sure that they like her, so don't validate, like just dismiss it. And I come up against that part. Other parts are like, no, because we don't want to dismiss and we don't want to invalidate. So I think that part has a lot of that part feels frustrated with the other
The,
parts.
the part the part that wants the people please is fighting
Yes.
the part that's like, no, we're non-coercive.
Yes, exactly. The part
Uh-huh.
that wants to people please, I think makes me I feel anxious because that part is coming up. And then I have that, battle or disagreement.
Right. Do you want to help the part who's the people pleaser? Do you want to give that part a voice? What would that sound like?
Yeah, I think that part doesn't get to talk because the other parts are really loud. It's like you can't raise an uncooperative and unpeaceful kid. You have to raise a child that can get along and um is yes strong. Like I think this part is like, yes, obviously we want her to be strong, duh. But you guys, you can't be so extreme. Like you really need to make sure that she also can like get along in social settings, because if you don't, she's going to be ostracized and be upset and sad and lonely. So like this part is saying like I'm also protecting her and you, Cara,
Yeah, so what was that part's job when you were growing up?
to do just that, like to be socially flexible,
Mm,
to like notice, right? The social nuances. And I was very good in social settings and reading people. I'm a therapist. So like I think this part had a lot to do with interpreting and then showing up in the right way, like
yeah.
being a mirror for everybody. Because it was
Oh my
like, well, you're not
God.
going to get bullied. You're not going to get isolated. So like, I'm going to work hard for you.
Right. Right. Okay, so we need to thank this part.
Yes, I'm getting that. Yes. Yes, I do really appreciate that. That's like a really, and actually lately I've been realizing like what a wonderful gift this specific thing, this part did for me, because I was actually I think very liked growing up by very many different people, different groups, and I was like I fit in. I was definitely socially like adaptable,
Mm,
and I also felt like I had my own thing going on and I was like confident in some of my own weird quirks. Like I was like artsy and music. I was in musicals and choir and I didn't care. I was like, fuck it, I'm doing me. Like, I don't care if people
mm,
think it's weird that I'm a choir kid.
mm.
But I also was friends with like lots of other kids and went to parties and did the whole high school thing. I felt like the social aspect of high school was essentially fairly easy. And I really think that that part helped me with that. That part was like reading everybody to help me not stand out in an off-putting way to people. But it was a lot of work.
I was just gonna say that was such hard
It
work.
was exhausting. Yeah.
Hard. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. To like be everything for everybody. And, of course, that's also a metaphor for my experience in my family. So this part, I think this part's been online, just balls to the wall since like however long.
How does it relate to your family?
There was definitely wanting to please my parents, having to keep an eye out for the social dynamic in my family. What is everybody's mood? How's everybody feeling? Like what does everybody need? Let me like keep it
Mm,
together. Um and not trying to be too much of anything because that
wow.
wasn't okay.
Yes, I was so like that. I really
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah.
I was like the balancer. Like I went around making sure everyone was okay, like all the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
It's so hard to move uh past that. It's really hard
Yes.
to grow past that and be like, put your hypervigilance down. You don't have to
Yes.
regulate everyone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a form of trying to regulate everyone.
It is. And it's like, it's noticing when that's like, yeah, just like becoming aware, like deeply attuned to that part so that I can like work with it because like it has such a wonderful quality. It's like such a genius part. Like it's
Mm,
really brilliant when I think
mm.
about it. It's got this wicked sense. But it's also it's taking over, and I want it to like come sit with me. I want to like hold its hand. So I think I need to tell it like, thank you so much for protecting me. And I really, really am grateful for your quality. And would you be willing to take a step back? Because I know what you give me and I know how to work with it. I just don't want to feel that I'm in overdrive doing that all the time.
Well, this part has a false belief. This
Mm-hmm.
could be good to figure out what the false belief of this part is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're how you find that.
Yeah, because it's protecting something. So what are you protecting? Well, if you don't belong in a way, if you don't assess everybody all the time and you don't belong, then you become isolated and you're going to feel like shit. Um, you're going to be worthless. You need to bend yourself to what other people want of you. Otherwise you're not going
Value.
to belong to anybody.
So you'll be alone.
You'll be alone.
You'll be like horribly alone, which is a
Mm-hmm.
survival issue, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people will leave. Yeah, people will leave you.
How do you feel when you say that?
I feel kind of like it has a point. Like I get it. Like I get that belief that it has, like that it's protecting that. That's really scary.
It was true though when you were a kid. Like if you didn't do all the things that you did, maybe your parents wouldn't have loved you as much,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't have gotten all the things. And maybe you would have been alone. You were alone in a lot of ways. Maybe you would have been more alone.
Yeah. Yes. And definitely at times in childhood, like if you had friend drama, friend conflict, like the feeling of not having anybody to talk to was like torture. Because also, I definitely had a very separate life from my parents. My friends were a big, huge, massive part of my life, a part of
Yeah.
my process. Like I credit, such big parts of who I am to my very best friends. So if I ever had like conflict with them or felt like I was out of the group and had nobody, I mean, those were torturous times where I was like, you know, being tortured emotionally.
Right. So I think that the torturous aloneness is what this part is protecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's important to let yourself feel that, because that actually was going on. I feel like it's important to say I was a people pleaser. I was a high achiever. I was a very successful kid, and I was totally alone on some essential level because my parents were not safe. So even though I was out managing my life, underneath all of that, I was totally alone.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say that in this context, because a lot of times parents are going for the good behavior. That's what they want, is their child to have friends and be popular and get good grades and work hard and have gifts and talents that they're developing. And that's what they're attached to.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that there's good emotional connection with your child,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you're prioritizing. And so like our whole entire message is that that's actually not the priority.
Mm.
That's not our priority as parents. And ultimately, I think parents really want to be close with their children. So then they get to a point where they're like, oops, fuck that all up. Oh, we're not close. My kids are success, but we're not close, and,
Mm-hmm.
and, and so or sometimes kids people please for the rest of their lives. They just perform their whole lives. That's it. And then the kid ends up not in touch with their deeper emotional reality. Because that's what the parents value.
Yeah.
you know it doesn't always mean that the kid will reject the parent. A lot of people say that, like, if you use authoritarianism when you grow up, your kids won't want to be close to you. That's not always true.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work out that way. It just means there's a quality in the child and the adult that is not emotionally focused. It's externally focused, which we're all
Exactly.
struggling with anyway in this crazy, stupid, capitalistic, patriarchal system. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
just
think.
wanted to point to the aloneness. But
Mhm.
just because you had a successful part doesn't mean that you didn't have the profound aloneness underneath that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's really what this part is protecting. Like, the part is like, well, so internally, obviously, alone. So needing to belong and cultivate community and be whatever everybody else wants me to be. And for my kid externally, to make her fit in, to
Right.
have her show up for
Right.
everybody, no matter what.
I know it's really hard to get this, Cara, but she has you and you didn't have you. And that's the
Yeah.
whole difference.
Yeah.
She has you, she'll always have you. You didn't have that. That's very hard for our brains to understand that our child is actually not going through what we went through because they have us.
Yes. That's where the anxiety is right there. Like, okay, she has me, but she's still going to go through this.
Hmm.
Right. That's really the false belief.
The truth is, though, she still might go through some version of rejection. I mean, because kids are brutal, school is
Yeah.
brutal. I mean, she's going to have pain, but you're going
But
to be
but
there.
I'll be there, right? Like, that's
Right.
exactly it. I think I really want my parts to hear that the truth is that while internally I'm going to continue to hear what they need and work with them, externally, I hope that they can take a step back when it comes to the anxiety a little bit because I'm there for her. I almost want them to, again, trust the parenting or trust like that, I'm listening to their input and what they're worried about so that I can be there for her and so that she doesn't end up without me. Because, like, my biggest fear would be that she goes through shit without me
Yeah.
and feels completely alone,
Yeah.
um,
I
without
guess
my
I would want
guidance.
to, I want to do the same thing we did with the other part, which is to, I don't know how old they alone, like if you figure out the part that felt totally alone and you had to stuff that and go out and perform like crazy, but the one underneath that, if she needs comfort
Mm,
and love and be like, you're not alone anymore. In the work that I do with people, I bring those parts spiritual helpers. Like I'll bring the alone parts, like a puppy or like a spiritual mother that never leaves, or like
mhm,
or a big light, a big bright, beautiful, warm light, and or a hug, like just whatever that part needs.
mm. I do that too, and I always think it wants me, like, it wants me now because
Yeah.
it wants me to, like, show it. Because I'm thinking about when I was basically exiled, which is a good word because this part feels like an exile
Mm.
from like a social situation in seventh grade. And it was like very, very aggressive and harsh, um, mean and unkind things said to me. And I had to go to school, after all that happened and stuff. And I wasn't in the group anymore. And I was alone and had to make new friends. And I did. I made some of the best friends that I still have. So it went away in the external world, but internally, like, that part did not get enough. Although I will say my parents actually knew about that and helped me a lot.
Oh, good.
They really did. I remember actually they were like they said a lot of wonderful things and supported me. But I
Wow.
think it's just more about like the greater, like the fact that we have to continue to go through the system. It's like you
Yeah.
get some support, but
Yeah.
really to unpack and process that and really get the validation that I would have needed at the time. I also like never got an apology from the people.
Right.
So,
Right.
and have knew them all through growing up. So it's like that just kind of faded away. And I think that part wants me to like sit with it and like listen to its whole story because I don't think it ever really got to tell
Hmm.
and have me just like be there to like look to be like, okay, like you're going to be okay. Yeah. And to like stay there with it, like to
Hmm.
not leave it alone.
Hmm.
So I think that's what happened.
Right. How does that feel in your body?
That feels really nice. That feels really like warm.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's like it can unburden a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels really happy to speak its truth and its experience again. So it's been holding on to that one for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like saying something integrative about this, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think what parents don't realize is how much we're projecting onto our children almost 24/7. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
what makes parenting so hard. What makes it so hard is the projection, not actually our child. I know we have difficult children. I know people have very difficult circumstances. But often it's the memories of what happened to us and all the things we didn't get and all the ways that we were treated and all the ways we're reenacting it that causes the terror, the anger, the reactivity. It's all because of what we're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It really is. I know there's parents are going to want to be like, but I'm a single mom and I'm not getting child support and I have there are these really scary situations. But in terms of our reactivity, we are projecting that our child is feeling what we felt all the
Mm-hmm.
time, all the time, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the fact is that like people can experience very really scary things, and their kids sometimes can be very scary to them. Because I do know of families that have had like very scary situations with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that like working with your parts allows you to figure out what really where your reactivity comes from really, and respond in a way that isn't harmful to your connection with your child, so that you
Right,
can
and
attune.
actually, it's the most incredible opportunity your child is giving you to do what Cara is doing. Go back in time and help these parts that never got seen, never got heard, never got loved, never got held.
Mm-hmm.
Your child is giving you that opportunity. It's like a torturous opportunity.
Mm. It is a torturous opportunity for
Yeah.
us.
Hmm.
I think parents, we are all in this together when it comes to um, the time and the conscious effort and the amount of work that maybe it feels like you're the only one in your family system that's doing it. Cause I know for me, I kind of am, to be honest. Like my husband is not doing this type of work that I'm doing because it requires such deep attention and also a lot of learning.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
it's a huge part of your life. When you decide to have an inner process, it takes up a huge amount of space.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do remember when I was 20, when I first started remembering my childhood abuse, I was like 24. I was barely had any money.
Mm,
I was barely surviving. And I had this therapist and she was $40 an hour. And I remember I had an aha, like what else would I spend my money on? Because my quality of life is so low. Like this is
mm,
actually the only thing that's going to improve my quality of life.
mm.
And I started to build a value system for mental health.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then my whole life I funneled into that value system.
Wow, that is amazing. That is like the most amazing thing. That's so true.
And that's the message.
Hmm.
So so how do you feel now? Where are you now in the process, right? This moment. What do you know? How's the anxiety?
It feels like it's still kind of there, but it's like, how can I say this? It's like it's still there, but it's like being welcomed or something. It's like, okay, we get you now. I don't know. I feel almost like it's like a friend now. Like
Right.
Dick Schwartz always says that like a friend, like your parts become your friends, not foes or whatever.
Right.
And
It's just like our actual children become our friends and not
yes.
foes, right?
Yes, like I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, it's gone, it's gone, because like I said, this has been low level for a while now. So it's not just magically disappear, but I guess I see it in another way,
Mm.
which makes me feel more um uh, uh like welcoming of it. Like it doesn't send me to over to like fight or flight. It's like, okay,
Mm.
it's here. I'm having it in my body and I can work with that.
Mhm.
This has been Your Kids Don't Suck. You can find me, Cara Tedstone, at www.caratedstonetherapy.com. and on Instagram at Cara Tedstone Therapy. On my website, you'll find links to recommended readings and a link to my Reparenting with Mindfulness workbook, available now on Amazon.
You can find me, Rythea Lee, at www.rythea.com. That's RYTHEA.com. There you'll find published books, articles, and music, and parenting videos. Also, I'm on TikTok at Rythea Lee, on Instagram at Rythea Lee. You can book parent mentoring sessions with me through my website. And also I have an Advice from a Loving Bitch YouTube show that helps people heal self-hatred, and that's rythea.com/advice. It is important and essential to put our voices, Rythea and Cara, in a context. We are two white, cisgendered, straight, middle-class women living with financial and societal privilege. Because of this, our perspectives are limited and do not reflect the realities of all of our listeners. This podcast will feature guests with expertise around conscious parenting who differ in race, class, abilities, sexual orientation, and histories from us, to broaden the conversation and reflect the lives of as many people as possible. 25% of the proceeds of this podcast will go to creators of color who have been mentors and influences on our work and in our growth as parents.
If you like our show, please subscribe and stay tuned for more conscious parenting advice and insights. And check out our link tree at linktr.ee/yourkidsdon'tsuck to donate and connect with us.